Did you know that the current median income in the US is $77,450 for a household? And in California, it's $84,325 for a household, where the average home value is about $746,000. This is quite different from a place like Indiana, where a home value is about $230,000. Clearly, your money can stretch a lot further depending on where you live. So today on Across the Globe, we're going to explore how much you need to live comfortably in every state. Keep in mind that this data is for a single worker, so if you're a family, you'll likely need to earn a lot more. For this list, we will go in order from the most expensive to the least expensive state. Number 50, Hawaii. If you've seen any of our other videos, you probably won't be too surprised that you need the highest salary to get by in Hawaii. According to data from Go Banking Rates, the average person needs over 6 figures here, specifically $124,320, which is about $48,300 more than the national average of about $76,000. Number 49, Massachusetts. While Massachusetts may be considered one of the best states to live in the US according to factors like its economy, quality of healthcare, and education, that doesn't mean everyone can afford to live here. In fact, a single worker needs just under 6 figures, or $87,900, to live comfortably. Number 48, California. I mentioned California at the start of this video, so you're probably not too surprised to see it here. All that great weather and beautiful nature come at a cost, literally. Here, the average person needs $80,100 just to cover basic necessities like food, housing, and a base level of savings. Number 47, New York. According to Wallet Hub, New York has the highest tax burden in the entire country. That's likely one of the many factors making the cost of living in the Empire State pretty astronomically high, with the average person needing a yearly salary of $72,260. Number 46, Alaska. If you're like me, you're probably surprised to see Alaska at the top of this list. But Alaska is actually quite expensive to live in, with groceries, utilities, housing, transportation, and healthcare all being more costly than the national average. All in all, that means you need a minimum of $71,500 per year to live comfortably here. Number 45, Maryland. Maryland is another one of those states that is more expensive to live in than the US average when it comes to metrics including housing, utilities, groceries, and more. In fact, the average salary needed is $67,900. Number 44, Vermont. Vermont's scenic fall foliage comes at a cost. According to Go Banking Rates, in order to get by in Vermont, you need $65,900 a year. That's about $10,000 more than the median single earner in the US. Number 43, Oregon. Right on par with Vermont is Oregon, where you need an annual total of $65,763. This might be surprising considering that Oregon has the 11th lowest tax rate in the country and has an average home value that's only a little above national numbers. However, higher costs elsewhere, including groceries, healthcare, and transportation, might be to blame. Number 42, Washington. In Washington, the cost of living index is 115.7 compared to the national average of 100. Despite having no state income tax, residents need about $65,640 annually to cover their expenses. The state's tech industry, high housing costs, and rents in areas like Seattle likely contribute to this figure. Number 41, New Jersey. Did you know that New Jersey is considered one of the best states to live in for families? However, families and singles alike require above-average salaries to live here, with an individual needing a salary of $64,450 for a comfortable way of life. High property taxes and housing costs are factors influencing this amount. Number 40, Connecticut. Connecticut is a picturesque state with a unique blend of rural areas and small cities. However, if you decide to live here, you'll need an annual salary of $63,750 just to get by. The cost of living is driven up by high housing costs in certain areas and above-average expenses for healthcare and utilities. Number 39, New Hampshire. Like Washington State, New Hampshire also has no state income tax. However, it goes one step further by also having no sales tax. Despite that, to live comfortably in New Hampshire, one needs about $62,900. Number 38, Maine. Maine is famous for its coastal towns and seafood, and because of its rural nature, you might assume that it's an inexpensive place to live. Well, that's not necessarily the case, as Go Banking Rates reports that you need a salary of $61,862 to live comfortably. The state's relatively high costs for healthcare and utilities add to the overall living expenses. Number 37, Arizona. Arizona's unique desert landscape comes with an annual cost of living requirement of $61,279. High housing costs, especially in wealthy areas like Scottsdale, contribute to this number. Colorado is known for having expensive ski resorts, but it's also more pricey to live here, as you need about $59,800 annually. Costs, particularly in cities like Denver and Boulder, where the average home values are about $558,000 and $974,000 respectively, are likely a factor. Number 35, Nevada. Nevada is more than just Las Vegas, but despite that, you still need a higher than average income to make things work. According to Go Banking Rates, that number is $58,500. The state's higher than average cost of living is influenced by above average expenses for things like utilities and transportation. Number 34, Idaho. You probably don't think of Idaho as a place where you would need to make more than the average income to get by, but in fact, you need a salary of about $58,600 annually. That's because even though housing is less than the national average, certain things like transportation and healthcare are more costly. Number 33, Virginia. Virginia requires a salary of $57,293 annually. This above-average number may be influenced by the state's proximity to Washington, D.C., and high housing costs in Northern Virginia, which, interestingly enough, is seeing housing prices rise faster than the national average. Number 32, Montana. Home to part of Yellowstone National Park and Glacier National Park, Montana requires a number slightly higher than the national median income to get by. If you want to make a comfortable living for yourself in Big Sky Country, you'll need about $57,500 a year. Number 31, Florida. Florida is one of those states where it really depends on where you're living to understand how much you need to live. After all, it has everything from affordable little towns in the north to the billionaire Bunker Island in Miami. All in all, this means that on average you need about $57,600 annually, which, all things considered, is pretty reasonable. Number 30, Delaware. Delaware may be one of the most business-friendly states, but it's also fairly friendly for individuals looking to live affordably. Here, you need only about $2,000 more a year than the national median to get by, with a yearly salary of $56,571. Number 29, Utah. If you want to live in Utah, which is known for good skiing, national parks like Zion and Bryce Canyon, plus its family-friendly atmosphere, you'll need an annual salary of $55,200. This number will vary depending on where you live, as housing costs in cities like Salt Lake City are significantly more expensive. We've reached the first state where the number you need to get by comfortably is less than the national median income, and that state is Pennsylvania. Here you need about $53,000 annually. North Carolina has been all over the news lately as being one of the best places to live in the U.S., and that's largely because they launched a massive marketing campaign to try to get employers and workers to move there. However, when we look at the salary you need to get by, there may be some truth to this campaign. Here, you only need $53,531 annually to live comfortably. Fun fact, Wisconsin is not only home to a large part of the dairy industry, but it also was where the first ice cream sundae was made. A metaphorical cherry on top to live here is the low cost of living, with an annual cost of living requirement of $53,120. North Dakota is one of the least densely populated states in the country, and that might be part of the reason why it's more affordable to live here. For instance, the average home value is only about $251,000, which likely contributes to the fact that residents here need only about $52,800 annually. Speaking of low housing prices, in South Carolina, the average home value is $287,000, far less than the national average price. Here, you can enjoy the state's scenic coastal areas and state parks at a comfortable annual salary of $52,222. South Dakota, famous for landmarks like Mount Rushmore and the Badlands, necessitates an annual salary of $52,900. But you can also find lower-priced groceries, utilities, transportation, and healthcare. If you've seen any of our other videos, you probably know that we've named Minnesota one of the best states in the country due to its affordability combined with its high quality of life. Here, you can get by comfortably on $51,900 annually. Residents in New Mexico need about $51,100 annually to live comfortably. For example, although Texas has an overall housing index that's about 16% less than the national average, if you're looking to buy in Austin, that number is way above the national average at an average home value of about $533,000. Overall, though, you need about $51,495 to be comfortable in the Lone Star State. Number 20, Ohio. In Ohio, you need about $4,000 less a year than the national median income to get by, for a total of $50,100. Interestingly, it's not just one metric that makes Ohio more affordable than other states. It's everything from its lower cost of housing to more affordable groceries and transportation. Famous for its unique culture and cuisine, Louisiana has a cost of living index that's almost 10% less than the national index. That means you only need about $49,876 annually to live comfortably. Detroit, Michigan's largest city, has an average home value of only $67,000. While that definitely doesn't represent the rest of the state, it might be a contributing factor to why, on average, you only need $49,495 annually to live comfortably. Indiana is one of the top 10 biggest agricultural states in the country. As you can imagine, that means the state is pretty rural, which likely at least partially explains why its cost of living index is only 91.1. Here you can get by on $49,800 a year. Wyoming is not only known for Yellowstone National Park, but also for Grand Teton. Luckily, you can enjoy all the natural beauty this state has to offer at a low cost of living, with estimates putting an individual yearly salary needed to live comfortably at $49,682 annually. Like many of the other states on this list, Illinois is a blend of urban and rural areas, meaning that where you live in the state will heavily influence the income you need. However, on average, that number is $49,376. Did you know that Georgia is one of the nation's top producers of peanuts, pecans, and peaches? But that's not all the state has going for it. With a cost of living index of 90.9, you can get by here on about $49,500. Nebraska is another one of the big agricultural states. In fact, agriculture is so big here that farms and ranches occupy 93% of the state's total land area. That doesn't mean living here is expensive, however. It's actually the opposite, with residents needing about $49,990 annually. The birthplace of country music and home to the Great Smoky Mountains, living in Tennessee requires $48,764 annually. I will note that in music hubs like Nashville, you may need even more. Fun fact: Iowa is the only state whose east and west borders are formed almost entirely by rivers. But that's not all. Iowa is also the nation's top corn producer. Here, you need about $48,758 annually to live comfortably. If you drive across Missouri, you are sure to see lots of variety, with major cities like St. Louis and rural areas like the Ozarks. The state not only has variety, but also has the sixth lowest cost of living index in the country, meaning you only need about $47,771 annually for comfortable living. We just looked at the state with the sixth lowest cost of living index in the country, but West Virginia actually has the lowest, with an index of 85.2. Here, everything seems cheaper, ranging from housing to groceries to transportation to healthcare. The result, you need about $47,732 annually. Kansas is not only considered one of the top 20 places to live in, according to factors like its economy and overall quality of life, but it's also one of the most affordable. Here, you need $47,379 a year as an individual. Kentucky may be famous for its bourbon and horse racing, but now it may have a new claim to fame: its affordable cost of living. Here, the overall cost of living index is almost 7% lower than the U.S. average, and the salary needed to be comfortable is only $47,318 annually. Did you know that Arkansas is the #1 producer of rice in the U.S.? That's right. We're seeing yet another major agricultural state as one of the most affordable places to live in the U.S. Here, you need about $47,100 per year. In Alabama, residents need about $46,567 annually for a comfortable quality of life. Lower housing costs in cities like Birmingham and Huntsville likely influence this number. Number 2 on our list is Oklahoma, where estimates say you need only $46,200 a year to live a high quality of life. Remember, that's significantly less than the median income of a single person in the U.S., which is $54,000. However, I will note that safety and the quality of the state's education and healthcare may be a bit lacking. Number 1 on our list is Mississippi, which has the lowest cost of living in the country. Not only is the cost of living index here 86.7, or over 13.3% lower than the national average, but in Mississippi, you need about $8,200 less than the average worker makes to live comfortably. In fact, in Mississippi, you only need $45,900 annually, which is pretty significant when you compare that to the most expensive state in the U.S., Hawaii, where you need $124,120.